Some places hold more than just memories, they shape who we become. For Michael Jordan, the small barbershop on the corner of Pine Street in Wilmington, North Carolina, was one of those places. On a crisp autumn morning in 2025, the greatest basketball player of all time found himself drawn back to the neighborhood where his journey began, only to discover something that would stir emotions he hadn't felt in decades. The familiar jingle of car keys echoed through the quiet street as Jordan stepped out of his Mercedes, his eyes immediately drawn to the faded storefront where Mr. Thompson's barbershop once stood proud. The windows that used to showcase warm light and friendly faces were now covered with weathered plywood, a stark reminder of how time can change even the most cherished places. This wasn't just any barbershop, this was where a young Michael first learned the value of community, where the steady rhythm of clippers and animated conversations about basketball dreams filled the air. Every other Saturday, his father James would bring him here, not just for a haircut, but for life lessons that would echo through the years. The sight of the boarded-up windows hit harder than any defensive player ever could. Jordan stood there, his usual confident stance softening as memories washed over him. He could almost hear Mr. Thompson's hearty laugh, smell the talcum powder, and feel the worn leather of the waiting room chairs where he'd flipped through sports magazines, dreaming of the day his face would grace their covers. But today, the silence was deafening. The once bustling hub of community life stood as a ghostly reminder of changing times. Through the gaps in the plywood, Jordan caught glimpses of the interior, abandoned chairs covered in dust, mirrors reflecting nothing but shadows of what once was. His mind wandered to Bobby Thompson, Mr. Thompson's son, who had taken over the shop after his father's passing in the late 90s. What had happened here? A local resident, Mrs. Patricia Williams, emerged from the convenience store next door, her eyes widening with recognition. She'd lived in the neighborhood for over 5 decades, watching young Michael grow from a determined teenager into a global icon. "Mr. Jordan?" she called out, her voice carrying the warmth of familiarity. "I never thought I'd see you back here again." As they spoke, Mrs. Williams shared the story that would set everything in motion. Bobby Thompson had fallen ill earlier that year, forcing him to close the shop temporarily. Medical bills mounted, and what was meant to be a brief closure began to look increasingly permanent. The neighborhood had lost more than just a barbershop, it had lost a sanctuary where dreams were nurtured and community bonds were strengthened. Jordan listened intently, his jaw tightening slightly, a telltale sign to those who knew him well that his competitive spirit was awakening to a different kind of challenge. This wasn't about basketball anymore, this was about preserving a piece of history that had helped shape not just his life, but the lives of countless others in the community. Mrs. Williams continued, her voice heavy with emotion, "Bobby's been staying with his daughter in Charlotte. He tried to keep it going as long as he could, but sometimes life has other plans." She paused, looking at the boarded-up windows. This place, it was more than just a business. It was where people came to share their hopes, their struggles, their victories. Every child who sat in those chairs was made to feel like they could be somebody special. The words struck a chord deep within Jordan. He remembered sitting in that very chair, listening to Mr. Thompson talk about the importance of discipline, respect, and never giving up on your dreams. "You've got something special in you, young man," the old barber would say, his experienced hands steady with the clippers. "But talent ain't enough, it's what you do with it that matters." As Jordan stood there, more neighbors began to emerge from their homes, drawn by the unexpected presence of their hometown hero. Each person carried a story about the barbershop, graduation haircuts, wedding preparations, father-son traditions that spanned generations. The building might have been silent, but the memories it held were very much alive in the hearts of the community. One elderly gentleman, Mr. James Franklin, approached Jordan with a photograph in his weathered hands. It showed a young Michael getting his hair cut, his father James standing proudly nearby. "Found this while cleaning out my attic," Mr. Franklin said, his voice thick with emotion. "I used to take pictures for the neighborhood newsletter. Never thought I was capturing history in the making." The photograph transported Jordan back to that specific day. He was 14, and his father had just finished telling Mr. Thompson about Michael's latest growth spurt and how he was determined to make the varsity team. The encouragement and belief he received in that barbershop had been as vital to his development as any coaching he'd received on the court. As the morning sun climbed higher, Jordan's initial shock at finding the barbershop closed began to transform into something else: determination. The same fire that had driven him to push through countless practices, to turn defeats into fuel for victory, was now focused on a different kind of challenge. This wasn't about adding another trophy to his collection. This was about preserving a legacy that had helped create not just a basketball player, but a man who understood the value of community. Looking at the gathered neighbors, Jordan saw not just faces from his past, but a reflection of what this place had meant to so many. Each person's story added another layer to the rich tapestry of memories and significance that the barbershop held. It wasn't just about haircuts, it was about belonging, about having a place where dreams were taken seriously and where the community came together to support one another. Mrs. Williams must have noticed something change in Jordan's expression, because she placed a gentle hand on his arm. "You're thinking about something, aren't you?" she asked, recognizing the look of determination that had preceded so many of his greatest achievements. Jordan nodded slowly, his mind already racing with possibilities. The barbershop might have been closed, but its story wasn't over, not if he had anything to say about it. This place had given him so much during his formative years, and now he had the opportunity to ensure it could do the same for future generations. As he walked back to his car, Jordan's phone was already in his hand. The same decisiveness that had made him legendary on the court was now directed towards a new goal. This wasn't just about restoring a building, it was about rekindling a beacon of hope and community spirit that had guided so many young people toward their dreams. The neighbors watched as he made several calls, his voice carrying the same intensity it had during crucial game moments. They couldn't hear the specific words, but they could sense that something significant was about to happen. Jordan's presence had always had that effect, making people believe that the impossible was within reach. Before leaving, Jordan took one last look at the boarded-up windows, but now he saw beyond the current state of disrepair. He saw potential, opportunity, and a chance to give back to a place that had given him so much. The greatest basketball player of all time had just found a new court to compete on, one where the stakes weren't measured in points or championships, but in preserved memories and future possibilities. As he drove away, the neighbors began to share excited speculations about what might happen next. They had just witnessed the beginning of something special, a moment where past and present converged to create hope for the future. Michael Jordan, the boy who had once dreamed big in a small barbershop chair, was about to show them all that some traditions were worth fighting for, and that sometimes the most meaningful victories happen far away from any basketball court. What happened next would not only change the fate of one small barbershop, but would remind an entire community about the power of remembering where you came from and the importance of preserving the places that shape us. The story that was about to unfold would prove that even the greatest athletes could find new ways to inspire, not through athletic achievement, but through acts of kindness and community preservation that touched hearts in ways no slam dunk ever could. The drive to Charlotte felt shorter than usual as Michael Jordan's mind raced with possibilities. The image of Bobby Thompson's boarded-up barbershop kept appearing in his thoughts, along with the faces of all those community members who had shared their stories that morning. His first call had been to his business manager, but this wasn't going to be just another investment. This was personal. As Jordan pulled up to the modest suburban home where Bobby Thompson was staying with his daughter Lisa, he thought about all the times Bobby's father had shaped not just his hair, but his character. The flower beds were well tended, and a basketball hoop stood in the driveway. A sight that brought a slight smile to Jordan's face. Some things were just meant to be. Lisa Thompson answered the door, her expression shifting from polite curiosity to astonishment as she recognized the visitor standing on her front porch. "Mr. Jordan?" she managed to say, her voice barely above a whisper. We had no idea you were coming." Behind her, the sound of a medical oxygen machine hummed steadily. Jordan's voice was gentle but carried its characteristic confidence. "I heard about your father, Lisa. I was hoping I could talk to him." There was something in his tone that spoke of more than just a casual visit. It carried the weight of purpose and possibility. Bobby Thompson was sitting in a warm recliner, oxygen tubes helping him breathe, but his eyes still held the same sharp intelligence that had watched over countless conversations in his barbershop. When Jordan entered the room, those eyes widened with recognition, and decades seemed to fall away. "Little Michael," he said, his voice weaker than Jordan remembered but still carrying that familiar warmth. "Though I guess nobody's called you that in a long time." The next hour unfolded like a journey through time, as Bobby and Jordan shared memories of the barbershop's golden days. Bobby spoke of his struggle with emphysema, the mounting medical bills, and the heart-wrenching decision to close the shop. His hands, once steady with clippers and razors, trembled slightly as he showed Jordan old photographs from the shop's heyday. The hardest part wasn't closing the doors, Bobby admitted, his voice catching. It was letting down the community. That shop wasn't just about haircuts, it was where people came to feel like they belonged somewhere. Jordan nodded, understanding exactly what Bobby meant. He had felt that belonging himself, all those years ago. As they talked, Jordan shared his vision, not just to reopen the shop, but to transform it into something that would honor its legacy while serving future generations. "Mr. Thompson," Jordan said, leaning forward in his chair, "that shop helped make me who I am. Now it's my turn to help keep its spirit alive." Bobby's eyes misted over as Jordan outlined his plan. The shop wouldn't just be restored, it would be expanded into a community center, with the barbershop at its heart. There would be mentoring programs, job training, and a space where young people could find the same guidance and support that Jordan had found there in his youth. "We'll call it Thompson's Legacy," Jordan explained, his excitement building as he shared the details. "The barbershop will still be the soul of it, but we'll add classrooms, a computer lab, and a recreation area. And I want you involved, Bobby. Your experience, your wisdom, that's something money can't buy." Lisa, who had been quietly listening, spoke up. "But Dad's health. He can't work like he used to." Jordan smiled, having already thought this through. "He won't have to. We'll have him as our director of mentorship. His job will be sharing stories, teaching the next generation of barbers, and keeping the spirit of the place alive." The conversation continued as afternoon sunlight streamed through the windows. Jordan shared more details about his vision, how they would preserve the shop's historic elements while modernizing the facilities, how they would create scholarships for aspiring barbers, and how they would ensure that the community's voice would be central in shaping the center's programs. Bobby's strength seemed to grow as they talked, his excitement pushing back against his physical limitations. "You know," he said, reaching for a photo album on the side table, "I always knew you were special, Michael. Not just because of basketball, but because you understood what that shop meant to people. The album contained photographs spanning decades, children getting their first haircuts, proud graduates in caps and gowns stopping by for a trim, wedding parties gathering for pre-ceremony touch-ups. Each image told a story of community, of tradition, of belonging. Jordan recognized many faces, including his own at various ages, always accompanied by his father's proud smile. "Your father," Bobby said softly, "he used to tell me you would do great things. But I don't think even he imagined you'd come back to save our little shop." The mention of his father touched something deep in Jordan's heart. James Jordan had understood the value of places like Thompson's Barbershop, places where a community could come together and build something stronger than the sum of its parts. As the afternoon wore on, they began to discuss practical matters. Jordan's team would handle the renovation costs and establish a foundation to ensure the center's long-term sustainability. Bobby and Lisa would be involved in every step of the planning process, ensuring that the essence of what made the original barbershop special wouldn't be lost in the transformation. "There's one more thing," Jordan said, pulling out an envelope. "This is to cover your medical expenses and ensure you can focus on getting better." Bobby tried to protest, but Jordan held up his hand. "Consider it a down payment on all the wisdom you'll be sharing with our future barbers and mentors." Lisa began to cry softly, the weight of months of worry finally lifting from her shoulders. Bobby reached for her hand, his own eyes glistening. "Michael," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "you didn't have to do any of this." Jordan stood, his tall frame casting a shadow in the late afternoon light. "Yes, I did. Some debts can't be measured in dollars and cents. What your father and you gave to that community, what you gave to me, that's the kind of debt you repay by paying it forward." Before leaving, Jordan had one last surprise. He handed Bobby a small box containing a key. "This is symbolic for now, since we have some work to do first, but it's important you have it. You're not just going to be our mentor, Bobby, you're still going to be the heart of that place. Different role, same spirit." As Jordan prepared to leave, Bobby called him back. "Michael, wait." With Lisa's help, he stood from his recliner and walked slowly to a cabinet in the corner. From it, he retrieved an old, well-maintained pair of barber's clippers. "Dad used these on you the first time you came in. Said he knew right away you were going to be somebody special. They should be part of the new place." Jordan carefully took the clippers, feeling the weight of history in his hands. These weren't just tools, they were a symbol of everything Thompson's Barbershop had stood for. "They'll have a place of honor," he promised. "And they'll remind everyone who comes through our doors that greatness can start anywhere, even in a barber's chair." The sun was setting as Jordan finally left, casting long shadows across the suburban street. In his rearview mirror, he could see Bobby and Lisa still standing in the doorway, waving goodbye. The day had started with him finding a boarded-up barbershop, but it was ending with something much more valuable, a chance to preserve a legacy that had helped shape not just his life, but the lives of countless others. As he drove back to Wilmington, Jordan's mind was already racing with next steps. There would be architects to consult, permits to secure, and a community to reunite. But more importantly, there was hope to restore. The spirit of Thompson's Barbershop hadn't died when those boards went up, it had just been waiting for the right moment to be reborn, stronger than ever. Word spread quickly through Wilmington about Michael Jordan's return and his plans for Thompson's Barbershop. What began as whispered conversations in local diners and church pews soon became a movement that captured the imagination of the entire community. The transformation was about to begin, but first, Jordan had something important in mind. Early one Saturday morning, just as the sun began to paint the sky in shades of amber, a small crowd gathered outside the boarded-up barbershop. Jordan had invited key members of the community to participate in what he called a memory walk, a chance to document and honor the shop's history before the renovation began. Mrs. Patricia Williams was there with her photo albums, Mr. James Franklin brought his old camera, and several other longtime residents came, carrying their own pieces of Thompson's history. Jordan arrived wearing work clothes, a far cry from his usual tailored suits or basketball uniforms. As he approached the building, he carried something that made everyone pause, the same chair he had sat in for his very first haircut at Thompson's. He tracked it down through an old employee who had salvaged it when the shop first closed. Before we build something new, Jordan announced to the gathered crowd, we need to honor what came before. Every story you share today will help shape what this place becomes. With that, he produced the key to the boards that had sealed the shop, and for the first time in months, sunlight streamed through the windows of Thompson's Barbershop. The interior was exactly as it had been left, a time capsule of memories frozen in place. Dust motes danced in the morning light as Jordan and the community members carefully made their way inside. The old mirrors, though clouded with dust, still reflected the gathered faces, creating an almost supernatural effect as past and present seemed to merge in their surfaces. Mrs. Williams approached one of the vintage barber chairs, her hand gently touching its worn leather. This is where my late husband got his last haircut, she said softly. Bobby Thompson didn't charge us that day. Said it was an honor to serve a man who'd taught in our schools for 40 years. Jordan nodded, making sure his videographer captured the moment. These weren't just stories, they were the building blocks of community. As the morning progressed, more people arrived, each bringing their own memories. Jordan had arranged for professional archivists to document everything, every story, every photograph, every artifact. These wouldn't just be stored away, they would become part of the new center's foundation, literally and figuratively. One elderly gentleman, Mr. Theodore Hayes, brought in an old ledger he'd kept when he worked as a junior barber in the 1960s. Look here, he said, pointing to a particular entry. That's the day we stayed open late because the high school basketball team won the state championship. Every player came in for a victory cut. No charge, that was Mr. Thompson's way of celebrating with the community. Jordan spent time with each person, listening intently to their stories, asking questions, and sharing his own memories. He revealed how the new design would incorporate elements from these stories, like how the waiting area would feature a wall of photographs spanning the shop's history, or how they would preserve and restore the original barber poles to serve as beacons of tradition in the modern space. As midday approached, Jordan gathered everyone in the main area of the shop. The space might have been dusty and worn, but the spirit within those walls was as vibrant as ever. What we're building here isn't just about preserving the past, he explained. It's about building a bridge to the future. Every story you've shared today will help us create something that honors the legacy of Thompson's while serving the needs of tomorrow's generation. He then revealed detailed architectural renderings of the planned community center. The barbershop would remain at its heart, restored to its former glory but updated with modern equipment. Around it would grow spaces for education, mentorship, and community gathering. The plans showed how they would expand into the adjacent vacant lot, creating a campus that would serve as a beacon of hope and opportunity. One of the most touching moments came when Jordan unveiled the design for the center's entrance. The original Thompson's Barbershop sign would be restored and mounted alongside a new one reading Thompson's Legacy Community Center. Below it would be a quote from the shop's founder, "Every chair in this shop is a seat of opportunity." As Jordan walked the group through the plans, he explained how each new addition connected to the shop's history. The computer lab would be called the Mirror Room, reflecting how the shop's mirrors had always shown people the best versions of themselves. The mentorship Sender would be named the chair, symbolizing how the barber's chair had always been a place of guidance and wisdom. But it was the next revelation that brought tears to many eyes. Jordan announced that they had created a scholarship fund in honor of both Thompson men, father and son. Each year, promising students from the community would receive support for barber school or other vocational training. This isn't just about haircuts, Jordan explained. It's about continuing the Thompson tradition of building people up, of helping them see their own potential. The afternoon took an unexpected turn when Jordan's team brought in several boxes of brand new barber tools. He explained that once the renovation was complete, these tools would be given to graduates of their barber training program. But first, each tool would be used for a single symbolic cut, and Bobby Thompson, watching via video call from his daughter's home, would guide Jordan through giving a haircut to a young man from the neighborhood. The young man, Deion Washington, was a high school basketball player who had never experienced the original Thompson's barbershop. As Jordan draped the cape around him, Bobby's voice came through clearly on the video call, providing instruction just as his father had done for countless apprentice barbers over the decades. "Remember, Michael," Bobby said, his voice carrying decades of experience, "it's not just about the cut, it's about making that person in your chair feel like they matter." The gathered crowd watched in respectful silence as Jordan, under Bobby's guidance, completed his first haircut. It wasn't perfect, but that wasn't the point. It was about connecting past to present, about showing that even legends had to start somewhere. As the day drew to a close, Jordan had one final surprise. He announced that they had arranged for Bobby Thompson to receive specialized medical care that would help manage his condition more effectively. "The goal," Jordan said, "is to have Bobby here with us when we cut the ribbon on opening day. Because some traditions need to be passed down in person." The sun was setting as the group finally prepared to leave, but not before Jordan had them all sign their names on one of the shop's interior walls. These signatures wouldn't be painted over. Instead, they would be preserved under clear acrylic, a permanent reminder of the day when a community came together to begin writing the next chapter of Thompson's legacy. As the last person left and Jordan prepared to secure the building, he paused in the doorway. The evening light caught the dust motes in the air, creating what looked like countless tiny stars dancing in the space. In that moment, it was easy to imagine all the dreams that had taken flight from this humble shop over the years, and all the dreams that were yet to come. Tomorrow, the construction crews would arrive. The physical transformation would begin. But the real transformation had already started, in the hearts and minds of a community that was learning that some places are more than just buildings. They're anchors of hope, keepers of dreams, and bridges between generations. And sometimes, it takes someone coming back home to help everyone remember that. 6 months of intense work had transformed Thompson's barbershop into something extraordinary, yet somehow familiar. The morning of the grand opening dawned clear and bright, with a line of people already forming around the block hours before the scheduled ceremony. The air buzzed with anticipation as the community gathered to witness the rebirth of their beloved landmark. The building's exterior gleamed in the morning sun, its restored facade maintaining the classic charm of the original shop while subtly incorporating modern elements. The vintage barber pole had been meticulously restored, spinning with a hypnotic rhythm that seemed to bridge past and present. Above it, both signs, the original Thompson's Barbershop and the new Thompson's Legacy Community Center, shared space in perfect harmony. Michael Jordan arrived early, dressed in a suit that somehow managed to be both elegant and approachable. He spent time walking the perimeter of the building, checking every detail one last time. His attention was drawn to a group of elderly men who had gathered near the entrance, each of them former customers who had been coming to Thompson's since they were boys. Their presence reminded him why this project meant so much. But the most important arrival was yet to come. A medical transport van pulled up, and Bobby Thompson, supported by his daughter Lisa, emerged looking stronger than he had in months. The specialized medical care Jordan had arranged had made a significant difference, and though Bobby still needed his oxygen, his eyes shone with the same spark that had made him such a beloved figure in the community. Jordan walked over to greet them, and the two men embraced. "Ready to see what we've done with the place?" Jordan asked, a hint of anticipation in his voice. Bobby nodded, emotion already visible on his face. "More than ready," he replied. "Been dreaming about this day for months." As they approached the entrance, Jordan produced 2 keys. He handed one to Bobby and kept one for himself. "Some doors need to be opened together," he said, and the symbolism wasn't lost on anyone watching. Together, they inserted their keys and turned them simultaneously. The doors swung open, and Bobby Thompson got his first look at his family's legacy reborn. The interior took everyone's breath away. The main barbershop area had been restored to its former glory, with the original chairs carefully refurbished and positioned exactly as they had been for decades. The mirrors had been replaced but framed with the original wooden molding, each one cleaned and restored to its natural warmth. The vintage photographs that had once covered the walls were now professionally restored and displayed in elegant frames, creating a museum-like tribute to the shop's history. But it was more than just a restoration. Beyond the main shop area, new spaces branched out like welcome arms. The computer lab gleamed with state-of-the-art equipment, each station equipped with everything needed for modern job training and education. The mentorship center featured comfortable meeting areas designed to facilitate the kind of meaningful conversations that had always been Thompson's trademark. Bobby's eyes filled with tears as he took in each detail. The wall of signatures from the memory walk had been preserved exactly as promised, protected under clear acrylic that seemed to make the names glow in the morning light. His father's original barber tools, including the clippers that had given young Michael his first cut, were displayed in a custom-made case with a plaque telling their story. As more people filed in, Jordan guided Bobby to a special area they called the Legacy Corner. Here, a documentary played on a loop, featuring interviews with community members sharing their Thompson's barbershop stories. Bobby saw his own father's face appear on screen, in footage from an old local news story, talking about why he started the shop. "Every person who sits in my chair," the elder Thompson said in the video, "brings their dreams with them. Our job isn't just to cut hair, it's to help those dreams grow." The formal ceremony began at exactly 10 a.m., the same time Thompson's had always opened its doors. Jordan took the podium, but instead of speaking himself, he invited Bobby to join him. Together, they unveiled the heart of the new center, a scholarship program that would provide funding for aspiring barbers and other vocational students from the community. This place was never just about haircuts, Jordan told the gathered crowd. It was about building confidence, sharing wisdom, and creating opportunity. Today, we're not just reopening a barbershop, we're continuing a legacy that will touch generations to come. Bobby, speaking with surprising strength, shared his own thoughts. "When I had to board up those windows, I thought I was closing more than just a shop. I thought I was letting down every person who'd ever trusted us with their stories, their dreams, their children's first haircuts. But Michael showed me that some things are too important to let go. They just need a little help to grow stronger." The ceremony continued with the introduction of the center's first class of barber apprentices. 12 young people who would train under experienced mentors while also learning business skills in the computer lab. Each apprentice would receive a full scholarship, and in return, they would commit to mentoring others once they completed their training. One of the most touching moments came when Jordan revealed a surprise he'd kept even from Bobby. They had located many of the original barbers who had worked at Thompson's over the decades, and several were present for the opening. Each would serve as a guest lecturer in the training program, ensuring that the specific techniques and personal touch that had made Thompson's special would be passed on to the next generation. As the formal ceremony concluded, Jordan had one more surprise. He announced that the center would be offering free haircuts all day, with himself and Bobby working together at the first chair. "I've had a little practice," Jordan joked, referring to the symbolic cut he'd given months earlier. "But I still need Mr. Thompson to keep me straight." The day unfolded like a celebration of everything Thompson's had ever meant to the community. Children got their first haircuts while their parents shared stories of their own first visits to the shop. Elderly customers reunited with their favorite barbers. The computer lab hosted its first basic skills workshop, while the mentorship center already had a schedule full of career guidance sessions. But perhaps the most meaningful moment came late in the afternoon, when a teenage boy sat down in Bobby's chair for a haircut. The boy was wearing a basketball jersey and couldn't stop staring at Jordan, who was working at the next chair. Bobby recognized the look in the boy's eyes. It was the same look young Michael had worn all those years ago. "You play ball?" Bobby asked, as he draped the cape around the boy's shoulders. The teenager nodded enthusiastically. "Want to make it to the NBA someday," he admitted. Bobby caught Jordan's eye in the mirror, and both men smiled. "Well," Bobby said, "let me tell you a story about another young man who sat in this chair with the same dream." As the day drew to a close, the last customers left, and the staff began cleaning up. Jordan and Bobby sat in their chairs, looking at their reflections in the familiar mirrors. The shop was quiet now, but it thrummed with the energy of new beginnings. Through the windows, they could see the sun setting, casting long shadows that seemed to reach from past to future. "You know," Bobby said thoughtfully, "Dad used to say that a good barber needs 3 things. Steady hands, a listening ear, and a heart that cares about more than just hair." He paused, looking around at the transformed space. "I think we've built something here that has all 3. Jordan nodded, understanding exactly what Bobby meant. Thompson's legacy wasn't just a building or a program, it was a promise to the community that some traditions were worth preserving, some places were worth saving, and some legacies were meant to grow stronger with time. As they prepared to lock up for the night, Bobby reached into his pocket and pulled out an old brass key, the original key to Thompson's Barbershop. "Dad gave this to me when I took over," he said, holding it out to Jordan. "Think it belongs here now, with all the other pieces of our history." Jordan took the key reverently, knowing it would join the display case with the other artifacts of Thompson's past. But as he helped Bobby to his feet, both men knew that the real key to Thompson's legacy wasn't made of brass, it was made of the dreams, determination, and dedication of everyone who had ever found hope in a humble barber's chair. The lights went out, but through the windows, the barber pole continued its eternal spin, a beacon of tradition and transformation, reminding everyone who passed by that some places do more than just serve a community, they help build it, one story, one dream, one haircut at a time.